Comics.
Because they have no balls.
Captain's Log Supplemental. I'm Joe Getcho.
And I'm Mike White.
And welcome to our after show.
My favorite part is that we can digitally add some kind of an echo after the fact, but we still do this anyway.
Yeah.
So, in keeping with how things went the last couple times, and especially with Darkwing Duck, let me remind everyone, this is an after show. So please make sure that you've already watched or listened to our episode on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, The Dog of War, written by Mike Chen with art by Angel Hernandez, published in 2023 by IDW Publishing.
Yes, and if you are listening to, or watching, I guess, this episode, please let us know in the comments why you are here if you haven't listened to the episode. I'm just curious because we list this as an after show and we want people to, listen to our content and engage with us, but I'm just kind of like, why is no one listening to our episodes? Why do you guys like the after shows better? I want to know. Tell me in the comments.
Maybe it's more informal and people like that better. I don't know. But yeah, it would definitely be interesting to hear feedback about that.
Well, until then, let's talk about writer Mike Chen, who is a best-selling author of Star Wars Brotherhood, which I don't have with me, but I own that. Here and Now and Then, a Quantum Love Story, and other novels, as well as Star Trek Deep Space Nine comics.
Hey.
When he was young, he was writing and drawing his own fan fiction before he even knew what fan fiction was. Most of this involved crossovers between his favorite franchises because mashing up Robotech with Space Quest made total sense in his brain. So I guess that's how we got Deep Space Nine mashed up with a corgi.
I don't know.
You did kind of mention that it sounded, or that when you were reading it, it felt a little bit like fanfic. So, I mean, maybe that's his style. Really
only a couple parts, but that aspect that I think when fans are writing something, they tend to be like, this is my only chance to play with the toys, so I want to throw in as many references and things as I can. And even if you look at Brian Michael Bendis, who we've talked about a lot, one of his first writing jobs at Marvel was Elektra, right? So during that Elektra run, he pulled in as many other Marvel characters as he could because he was like, I don't know if I'll ever get to write a Marvel comic again. So I feel like sometimes that's the tendency with that, especially if it's like an early assignment or if it's, you're just writing something as a fan, but maybe you've not been on like a professional writing staff before. So I don't know.
Mike Chen in college took creative writing alongside his practical engineering degree, and he also began freelancing about the NHL for various sites. This led to a long career of writing technical and marketing copy and developing WordPress websites while covering NHL and international hockey for some of the biggest names in sports, Fox Sports, SB Nation, and Versus, which is now NBC Sports Network. So, huge sports fan. So why?
Yeah, but that's like really far from having a writing assignment on a comic book. So that's amazing. Well,
and why didn't he write a baseball comic of Deep Space Nine? Or maybe he did later. I don't know.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point.
But he'd always been a storyteller at heart, and although he loved writing about his favorite sport while earning a living from tech writing, which sounds pretty awesome, his head was constantly filled with stories. So today he's found his niche, blending science fiction elements and themes with a more grounded and intimate story. So in his stories, there really aren't any epic wars or fate of the universe events. Typically, they're tales of family and friendship and humor that just happen to have some time travel or an apocalypse mixed in. So he's kind of a quirky writer in that way. So I think that really, makes sense as to why we got the story that we did, where yes, it's a part of the larger universe with the war effort going on, but that really wasn't the focus of what we were talking about in the comic, even though we did deal with the Borg implant and how it could change the tide of the war. But it was really just kind of more on their what they're kind of like doing in this moment, and then also there's a corgi in the mix to just make it more fun. So it's almost like I kind of wonder if the corgi was added as an afterthought of, hey, I need something to shake up my story and make it fun so that it's not too serious about the war effort in this Borg tech, and then that's where the corgi came from.
I need a hook.
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Whereas I was expecting, like, it's called the Dog of War, so I thought it was going to be a hilarious, corgi tale where it's running around pooping on the promenade and in ops, and they have to clean it off the control panels and all that other stuff. But
I expected more of that too. I'm very surprised that it wasn't that.
if you want any more information on Mike Chen, you actually can go to his website, mikechenbooks.com, which has a lot of information. That's where I got my information from. So you can learn more about him and his writing style there.
Yeah, I want to set the record straight too about, some of the things that I said in the episode may have not been super complimentary, but I don't think he's a bad writer. I just think that there are things that could have been implemented better in this story. And again, you're talking to me who has watched and watched and watched and watched these episodes over, like you said, 20 years or more. So I know them like the back of my hand. And yeah, bonk.
Run into the
So maybe I'm harder to please as an audience member than some people would be, but yeah, I don't think he's a bad writer at all.
I don't think we really get over it. Like, we may feel like we're being critical, but I don't think we're really that critical. I mean, we never, call anything names or say it's, like just really bad or anything like that.
Trash.
Yeah. Even if there's something that we really don't like and we rate it a 2 or a 2.5 or whatever, we still kind of explain like, well, I didn't like this. This didn't resonate with me.
It's not for me.
Wasn't something I enjoyed. It's very personal as opposed to what seems to be the trend nowadays, which is to talk about the actual person who wrote it, drew it, and devalue them as a person. I don't know why, but that seems to be the way people go. But we don't do that on this show because we are a clean comic book podcast.
That's right. And also because it's not very nice.
No, not really.
So our artist for today was Angel Hernandez, who is not to be confused with the Major League Baseball umpire of the same name.
Oh, fun.
So because there is an MLB umpire with the exact same name, that's where most of the info on the internet leads when you search up this name. So I'm going to apologize now. I don't have a ton of information outside of like work highlights, but I can at least kind of break down his art style from what I observed and then talk about what he's done as a career. So he has been a comic book artist working professionally since 2013. So this is somebody that's much younger, much newer to the industry than a lot of the people that we've talked about. For IDW, he's worked on nearly all of the major Star Trek properties, including the original series, Discovery, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and even the Kelvin timeline books, which actually have an extremely long multi-year run. I think they went to like issue 75 or 80 or something like that. Like the Kelvin timeline has a big chunk of comics. So, and I guess Hernandez has penciled a lot of that. So the other major publishers that he has worked for is DC on the Arrow 2.5 series, connecting seasons 2 and 3 of the CW Arrow TV show, and as well on a book called Infinite Crisis: Fight for the Multiverse, which I guess was a tie-in to their larger Infinite Crisis event, which I have not read. Apologies, everyone. There's Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then there's Infinite Crisis, and that's different because that's from the 2000s. So perhaps due to his positive relationship at both publishers, he was actually picked to illustrate the Star Trek Green Lantern: The Spectrum War crossover series, connecting the Star Trek and Green Lantern universes. And if we don't have a Star Trek book on the docket yet for next year, that might be a cool one to look at, because that seems like a neat idea to cross over like the Green Lantern, because they're all space-based, adventures with the Star Trek characters. So yeah, I don't know.
Nice.
He's more recently been associated with the IDW Transformers comic book line, but again, you're going to see this trend over and over as I talk. It's all adaptations of other media. So it really seems like that's the niche that he's found in the comic book industry is, hey, can you do a book based on another property? And he's like, sure. I would say that his works are characterized by his ability to capture accurate likenesses of actors or characters from other media properties, but it still is stylized and it's not overly detailed. This is different from the X-Files because that book was really minimally detailed and had like really heavy shadow, again, to kind of imitate the look of that show. That's not so much how this book looks, but he gives you enough that you can go, oh yeah, that's Chief O'Brien. Oh yeah, that's Dr. Bashir
Mhm.
or whatever. And the colorist does do some heavy lifting there as well, you know. But the only issues I noticed with him having characters off model was, you noticed Odo. I actually noticed that Quark from behind a couple times, he had his head was kind of like flatter and longer than it
Wow.
should be. Kind of like that guy Madran in Star Trek Online. How there's sometimes that you encounter that Ferengi and like the character
Yeah.
model's been squashed or something. There were a couple panels where it looked like that, and I was like, why did we do this? So, but yeah, there are other properties that he's worked on, Winona Earp and the show Revolution. I haven't heard of either of those, but
Okay.
they all have comic book adaptations. I think his staging, as far as like where he puts the camera on the characters, is pretty dynamic. He's very good at the show don't tell method of storytelling that I think is really important in comics. So I noticed this big time and was a big fan of it because there are sequences in the story where we have a flashback to the nth degree. They don't just talk about it. You see Barkley with the lasers going into his brain and everything. And there's a part where Jadzia talks about her previous host, Emily Dax, who was a gymnast, and you see her like doing a gymnastics move and stuff right before Jadzia whips out this crazy gymnastics move to get them out of a situation. And actually, I appreciated that part of the art. And I mean, I know that they also used it for the Saratoga flashback, which we didn't like, but at least, again, it's giving the reader something visual to look at instead of you're just looking at somebody telling a story, which in comics is not as interesting as it is when you're watching a performance of an actor delivering something. Because, you know, the actor can give you the emotions on their face that they were going through when they had the experience, but you don't always really get that in comics because it's just a panel. So I thought it was really good that he was able to do that. But mostly his layouts with the characters and posing and everything was pretty pleasant. Latinum's vest did vanish in some panels. I noted that there. And then the off-model Batleth is really what bothered me when they were on the holodeck. So, but I felt like the characters and their expressions were all good, and that's, you know, something that really matters in a Star Trek comic, that Star Trek tends to be very character focused. So, but the ships and the station itself, I felt like they could have maybe even got a different artist or something to put a little more detail into some of that stuff. Because especially there was a shot where they had a bunch of ships like firing phasers, and I know it's a nitpick. This is the colorist's fault, not the penciler. But there were green beams shooting out of the front of the like Enterprise D looking ships. There were a lot of similar ships, and they were all shooting straight ahead. So I was like, that's not really how space combat looks or feels on Star Trek. But, you know, it's a minor gripe. It's not really a big deal. So
didn't seem like we did too much in space in this one.
There wasn't a lot of it. There were a couple times where they like cut away to here's one panel of the war or something like that. But it wasn't too big of a deal. So yeah, but unfortunately, I don't know where he was born. I don't know what nationality he is, any of that stuff, because Wikipedia wants to tell you about Major League Baseball. So that would be something that Captain Sisko would be interested in, but
very true.
Not us necessarily. So.
Well, I don't know how much we want to talk about Deep Space Nine because we've already done that before, and it's out there on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, the only like recent thing I have to say about it is that I did rewatch Past Tense, which is the season 3 episode where they go back to the year 2024, and it was in fact early September 2024. So I watched it on those dates that they go visit.
Oh, nice.
And it was interesting. And they've said online that the next chance to do this, to like watch a Star Trek thing on the date that it actually takes place, will be 2063 when First Contact happens. So this was kind of like a big deal. So I was like, yeah, let me rewatch it. But I was just struck by how much of the future prediction stuff they did was, there's a lot of it that's goofy, because when they talk about the internet, they call it the net. And you should log on to the net. And their computers look very like analog and DOS based and stuff. And so that was kind of funny. But a lot of the stuff, especially their prediction about the future just being like endless bureaucratic red tape to get anything done, I was like, that unfortunately is very true about the year 2024. So yeah, like some of it felt very like, how did they get this accurate, you know? So it was interesting to watch those episodes again, and it was kind of a fun experience to be watching it in the time that it's supposed to be taking place. So yeah,
that's cool.
That was fun.
Almost like playing your own away mission where it's like,
yeah,
oh, they're traveling to the year 2024. Well, that's where I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like if a show's like on location somewhere, like if you actually go there or you live there, you're like, oh, it's like the show's, you know, really happening.
Yeah, well, if you live near LA, I think you can go to Vasquez Rocks, which is where many away missions have happened for TNG and Voyager both. So there's a, you know, I guess a mountain range or a rock quarry or something where they've set a whole bunch of their away missions. So
there's a lot of like that where they have a location and they'll use it for not just like one franchise even, but different, completely unrelated properties. Like, oh, that's the building from, you know, Independence Day, or that's the, you know, whatever.
Yeah, it's fun when you find out that like the Power Rangers headquarters is actually just like some museum in Canada, and you can just go there and it's free and it's not a big deal.
Just everybody walk in and go, ay, 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 ay.
I would do that. Or I would be like, Power Rangers, a great evil has come to challenge us.
Your mouth has to not match.
Oh, yeah. Power Rangers. Wait a minute. Why do I have to be the Black Ranger? Sorry, there was a whole skit I saw about that.
Unrelated. Get my strangely drawn off-model Batleth out.
Right, exactly. Yeah, but we do a Star Trek episode every year, and it was really fun to look at Deep Space Nine because we haven't had a chance to look at that property yet.
Yeah.
I do think after reading this that I realized one of the reasons why is it's probably hard to find a place to fit new stories in with that one specifically. And actually, it's one of the things that keeps me from rewatching the show, because I can't just pop in at any episode in Deep Space Nine. It feels like if I'm going to watch it, I need to watch it from like beginning to end because it is so, the events are so connected to each other.
Yeah.
And, you know, it feels like I'm not just going to watch part 3 of the 6-parter, you know, at the beginning of season 6 when they're trying to retake the station, because that would be weird. So you almost need to watch all of it at once. And yeah, it's aged better than a lot of the shows in that regard because that's what TV is now, but also in that way it's harder to just like pick it up anywhere, I've noticed. So that's probably a writing challenge as well, because you have so much continuity that's just like, this is set and you can only write within these limits, you know.
Yeah.
So
whereas Voyager would be a lot easier because they tended to be more episodic, but still there's this whole stretch of time where they're traveling through the Delta Quadrant and anything could have happened at, you know, any point in that trip that they could have had a side adventure to some planet that we only heard of that one time because it's in the Delta Quadrant and we'll never see it again, kind of thing. So they can do something that doesn't impact the future.
Yeah, and the only continuity you have to worry about on Voyager is this during the time Kess was on the ship, or is it during the time Seven was on the ship?
Yeah, sure. And there are little
things. That's really
but
the only things that affect it majorly. So
yeah.
Oh, you were mentioning earlier, I forgot to say this in the episode, but I thought of it. When you have a character make a callback to another show or something like that, the instance that jumped into my mind was the episode of Voyager Prototype, when B'Elanna runs into like this android and they decide to rebuild him, and he's like, do you have beings like me on your world? And she's like, well, we have one called Data. And she like mentions that in the episode. And it's more like when they do it on at least the older Star Trek shows, it's a little more subtle and it's just kind of like one line, and it's not like, you know, it's not as like the civil defense thing was too much in this, where it's like, all right, we see that you know the show very well, like I get it, but we didn't really need that reference here, you know.
Yeah.
So.
But unlike the Darkwing episode where it was like, yeah, call back to this, call back to that, yeah, no problems. That seemed to be more fun. It was
fun and it felt more natural, I guess, there. And I guess that's what the difference is. The references weren't really a problem for me in this until the Welcome Bajoran Workers, or you know. until that
this
moment.
again.
I almost wondered, like, did they reference that just because the meme is so big right now? Like, is that why they put that in the story? Because it's not necessarily like a huge standout episode, but like that sequence of Ducat saying that is like all over the Star Trek meme posting groups.
My favorite part from that episode though is where they contact Ducat to get his help to override it, and so Ducat does his normal thing, like he beams over to Ops, and he's like strutting around like, well, I guess you guys are screwed and you're gonna have to figure it out. Good luck. And he's like, all right, beam me out of here. And then he's like, what's going on? He doesn't beam out and then he gets that message from his subordinate.
Ducat, if you are seeing this recording, it means you tried to abandon your post while the station's self-destruct sequence was engaged. That will not be permitted.
Outrageous.
All fail-safes have been eliminated. Your personal access codes have been rescinded. The destruct sequence can no longer be halted. All you can do now is contemplate the depth of your disgrace and try to die like a Cardassian.
Ducat's face the whole time, like he's hearing this message, is just like, oh my gosh, like.
And Garrick is just looking at him like he's so pleased with himself. He's like, I'm so happy you're gonna die with all of us here. Like,
yeah, that was some really good writing and just like a fun moment with all the characters. Like,
yeah, because he was just taking his time, like, oh, well, I guess you guys are in a bad situation.
That sucks for you. I mean, you guys did take the station from us, so
right.
I guess you got what you deserve. So peace out.
My gosh. Yeah, that was. I mean, it is a good episode for sure.
Yeah.
Oh well, I don't know that I have much else to say about DS9 that we haven't already said in our long video where we covered it. So.
Well, we've reviewed an original series comic, we've reviewed a Next Generation comic, we've reviewed a Deep Space Nine comic. So does that mean our comic next year is going to be a Voyager comic, or are we going to?
We should find a Voyager comic. I would love to. That one is harder to do because there just aren't that many of them. But I know that Marvel had the license for a while. I know that Wildstorm had the license. I don't know if that was before or after DC bought them. And I believe IDW has done some more recent comics with them as well. So that's definitely something to look into, because I would love to do a Voyager comic. It would be great to... Yeah. I mean, it's always fun to revisit these characters. That's why we like to do it every year. So...
Right. All right. Well, this has been another after show after the episode that we just...
recorded for you to listen to.
So please let us know in the comments what you think, and what you like most about our after shows, and what you like about Star Trek, and we can keep the conversation going. So thanks, and until then, I guess we'll beam out of here. Live long and prosper. And then I guess I should show the Deep Space Nine cast. I threw Wesley over here. He had a similar uniform.
Wesley.
And then don't forget,
I'm stuck on the Voyager theme. Lieutenant Carey.
Carey.
There should be another version of that character with a bloody nose.
Yeah.
That would be great. So I have Cisco, and he's still in the package, but I don't have any of my old figures.
Mine is not, and this is actually a new one. So after we recorded last time, I was showing my figures off, and I was like, oh, I don't have Cisco anymore, but I used to.
Oh, wow.
So then Ruby went to eBay and bought a Cisco off of eBay,
that's awesome.
And was like, here you go. And I was like, well, I can't take it out of the package. And she's like, just take it out of the package.
Yeah, it's fine.
And then she had the Star Trek Barbie thing.
Oh, yeah. They made Kira and Jadzia from
Deep
Space Nine for Barbie, yeah. That was a thing that they did in the 90s. I remember them pushing it. So, pretty crazy. One thing that I forgot, I can't believe I forgot to say this during the episode, but Deep Space Nine has more sitcom moments than any of the other shows, in my opinion. So they do actually have endings, kind of like the one where Morn was just like, I guess Morn will take it. He never shuts up, and it's like a wham wham. Like, yeah, there's the Brian with the coffee, like that ending. Yeah, where he like screams and gets burnt by the coffee. They actually do it a number of times where they have kind of an ending like that. And then as the show gets more serious, they kind of start doing that less and less.
Yeah.
But
well, we hear him scream because he's like, it's like singing songy, like,
yeah.
thing.
Avery Brooks wants to be a really high energy performer, I feel like. And unfortunately, the character he's playing on Deep Space Nine is not that. So anytime he gets a chance to like do something really like frantic or high energy, it seems like he's going for it. Like
I'm gonna try singing like an opera singer.
Like, do you remember when Duran was taking over his body because Jadzia was doing the the separation thing where the hosts went into different people?
Oh, yeah.
And he like puts his hands on the force field and he's like, let me out of here. And he's like, I'm like, oh my god. Like,
yeah, that was freaky.
yeah, I feel like he really wants to like, do something, more theatery, and unfortunately TV acting doesn't really let you do that much. So
But I'm still glad they cast him because it was still a good choice. And
for
I
sure.
couldn't imagine half the
No.
lines that he delivered being delivered by someone else. So
No, I can't either. He's definitely the character. Well, I guess this is bonus material.
bonus.
Bonus. I can't. That's not fair because my camera's too far away for me to shake it. I can shake myself.
I'm under attack! Whoa!
Why aren't there seatbelts on the Enterprise?
Whoa! I need a seatbelt. Abandoned ship. All hands. Abandoned ship.
There's been a plasma leak. No, a coolant leak. This whole thing's gonna blow. Running out of time.
Not gonna blow.
Wow. Running out of time. All right, we probably are done.
Yeah.
We like
Comics.
because they have